so we have quorum.
Barely.
Yeah. All right. Mr. Klein, will you provide us with the invitation, please, sir?
Absolutely. Heavenly Father, thank you for a wonderful weekend, the rain and the sun and everything in between. Lord, we thank you for the positions you've gotten us to on this commission and this committee. We've worked really hard to do right by your people and by you in this budget. The hearings we've had. All things will come for the betterment of your desires. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, recognition of the public. We have a few speakers here. Commissioner Janone.
Thank you, Mary Janone, 1100 Boxville Road. I'm here to speak on, actually on two things I didn't put it down. One was on the allocation for the funding for the courthouse, downtown courthouse, the new one. The citizens paid over $100 million for that beautiful building, taxpayer money, and I understand why it was done. I was not a commissioner at the time, and the previous commission approved it, and they started building it. We did lose a project manager kind of toward the end, and we had a project manager who was not, in my opinion, qualified to do that. So I had a little pause when I heard that the money was being withdrawn to finish the courthouse, because to me that is like building a house and not finishing it. You're saying your house is finished, the builder's done. So that to me was preposterous. So I also know that there was comments made that the money would go to public safety, and that if you don't understand the justice system, that is part of the public safety system. And there is a lot of backlog, I can tell you that, because one of my cases I have been waiting to do, it's been almost 4 months getting in the works, and well, it's not longer than that, because there's a backlog. And I know that from the conversations with the courthouse judges and needing to get this finished, I know that the state allocated the new judge for the position, and we didn't tell them no, go away. We went ahead and agreed to that. So I feel it's kind of a disservice to the citizens not to finish the courthouse as said. And we also had the finance department and the folks up there have worked very hard to get this going, and I'm going to watch the architect that was willing to pay, took 27% discount. It was at $85,000 to do the plans from front to back, take all responsibility, and use the plans that are in place at this time. And you're not going to find really an architect that will be willing to do that, because it's a different group of people that did it, and they would have to take on responsibility. So I think you're doing yourself a disservice by not finishing out as said, moving forward with it, get it done, and give the people what they paid for, because you're not doing that. The other thing, and I don't know if this is on the agenda, I didn't have a piece of paper to look at and see if it's on there, but it has to do with the archive building and the geothermal and the heating and cooling system. There was a comment, and I believe the mayor said that they're not doing that anymore. I'd like to say that that is not true. My husband has patents on geothermal, and they still are using geothermal to this day. There are people that do that work. You have to look for them, and that is a better cost to savings to geothermal, because your use of energy is less, and you save money. A lot of our schools have geothermal. So I'd like you, number one, to reconsider the $2 million. We actually agreed to that. The commission agreed to that. But I'd like you to reconsider and put that back where it needs to go. And I also would like you to think about this, using geothermal at the archive building, and get somebody qualified to fix it, because it's a simple. It's not simple. You don't know anything about geothermal. It's kind of rocket science. But I would like you to rethink that and maybe bring that back and figure out a better way. Not full not reinvent the wheel and just pull everything off the building and do something different. But, one other thing that bothers me is that I heard from and it's probably rumor, that, there's people that don't want that done because it's a political move. And I find that disheartening. I think that we need to do what's best for the community and for the county and finish the project. I don't like to spend money, I'm not wanting to spend a lot of dough, but if you're not gonna complete a building, you're stupid. And it really is, do I have more time?
You're actually out, but if you want to finish, man.
I understand.
Okay.
But, I think that we need to really think about what that decision will be, and we need to really, reconsider it. That's what I think.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kevin Baker?
Kevin Baker, 424 A.B. Wade Road. I certainly appreciate the additional funding for the pauper burial. Hopefully after this next budget, I'm not going to fall into that category though, of needing it. I do support the $2,500 for the Brown House. I do think that money already has been allocated by Mr. Brown, and we need to move that project ahead. But you know me, I always look at more esoteric things. The $60,000 for a talent search for a new financial director, that seems a little high. Typically, I know in my past professional life, 10 to 20% of an annual salary was a typical search fee. So I know we're paying somewhere around $200,000. You know, so $60,000 is a little high. But the other thing that as I put my ear to the wall, it sounds as if some people have already decided who they want. So why would we earmark $60,000 to go for a talent search? I'm just saying, just don't arbitrarily spend that money. If people are already behind the scenes lobbying for a certain person or certain groups are saying that they've already got somebody picked, if you're going to do a search and spend the money wisely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Judge Jay?
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Deacon A. I have the honor of serving God and serving the people of Sumner County as a criminal court judge, and I've done that for 18 years. And I told Gen Ops last Monday that after sitting through many sessions of the committee meetings, watching you all, I'd rather be in criminal court. And believe me, I feel for you. I want to talk about the bill now. Things kind of changed last week. On Monday, we went before Gen Ops, and $85,000 contract for architect work and design was approved. And then on Friday, we found out that this committee wanted to fund it for a year. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about that. I've got one recommendation to make to you. You know, we're on the same team, and we serve the public. We need to work together here on the same field. And I don't want to overlook that fact. But we got the architect approved. Why, if you want to stop, why don't we go ahead and go through with the architect and lock in on the price, and why, so we don't have to wait another 8 months. It took 8 months to arrive as an architect, while we've been doing the best we can to work through trial courts. It's hard to serve the public when you're compromised a little bit, and I would like to suggest that option. Secondly, I want to talk to you a little bit. A lot's been mentioned about convenience and inconvenience. Don't you think it's inconvenient for a judge not to have a courtroom? Can we agree on that? Now, I have taken the jury assembly room, and it doesn't matter who the judge is. It doesn't matter if me, if it's Judge Nichols. We all do the same job. And we are compromising the criminal justice system. We've got constitutional issues, and you all talk about the Constitution. Well, wait till you go to criminal court and see how it works. It's amazing. We live and breathe the Constitution every day, every case. And we've got constitutional issues. We got safety issues. The courtroom that I'm using now is just one big room, assembly room with chairs. There's no wall between the public and the defendant and the attorneys and the judge. We really struggled. Last week, I was in 3 different courtrooms. Had a child sex abuse jury trial for 3 days. Commissioner Pomeroy was the foreman. He was in 2 different courtrooms on different days. We all have to struggle to get things together for our daily dockets. The public suffers because we've got one criminal court on the 5th floor and another criminal court on the 1st floor. Defendants get lost. We issue arrest warrants when they're not in court. And sometimes they're in the other courtroom, and we have to work through that. It's a situation where we got a potential courtrooms right next to each other, but now we got one on the 5th floor, and now we got one on the 1st floor, and it takes time when we could work together and do things better when we're next to each other. We've got lawyers that complain. We got everybody complaining about that gap there. And it kind of hinders what we do. You know, I know you're waiting for sales tax revenues to come up, and maybe that's something we can consider here. I don't know, but you voted to use the money, and we have come to rely on it, and we've waited 8 months, and now we're at this point. I want you to know that the 2-judge situation is held. In jury trials, I had a backlog before we had another trial judge of a year to a year and a half of jury trials. During the time period that Judge Nichols has been there, we have improved 4.5 times more than that period of time the year before. So we're working to make things meet. We just need some help and consideration to get it done so we can work. And I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that concludes recognition of the public. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. My report, I typically don't have much in my report, but I have one thing this time. We've had 2 people speak on it. So, I'm going to be more blunt and less kind than our speakers. I know very well that the reason that we have this committee, and me being the only person that voted against, or at least the genesis. I don't know how the reason for every individual voting, but I do know that the genesis of pulling our funds from this courthouse, funds that were already appropriated for by the entire commission, funds that are driving a project which is currently under works, a project that if we should pull would not, that took 8 months, which we just heard, and I can verify as fact to get started. And if we should pull these funds, we will have to cancel that. Obviously killing that, but also jeopardizing not only a future timeline and costing more money, but additionally risking reputational harm to us as a business entity. I wouldn't want to do business with somebody who pulled a, who said, yeah, this is gonna happen, and they pulled something at the last minute. And we're doing all of this, and I'm gonna call it spade a spade here, man. We're doing all this because we don't like a judge. We don't like how that judge came to us. And this is the typical good old boy nonsense that I personally ran against, and I'm not gonna do anything. If we wanna vote against it, I'm just one vote, that's fine, but I'm not gonna be somebody who stands here and just lets it fly under the radar without calling it out for exactly what it is, because that is exactly what it is. So here's the thing, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion, and I don't care if it fails. I'm gonna make a motion to appropriate $100,000, so that we can continue this.
So this is what I was gonna say, it's already appropriated. My office has been working on it for several months. You've got the architectural, you've got the construction appropriated. We went back to the architect that designed the courthouse. They no longer wanted to work with the county, so we've been hunting for an architect that would use the existing design. And, you know, generally it's based on a percentage of design, construction, and would remove the portion for the design and charge that fee. That's what Mr. Nunn was talking about. We had a quote. The quote was down in the mayor's office. We were waiting on the quote. When the quote comes back, the architect is going to take that, create a contract, and then we were going to give a PO for the contract and then ask the mayor to sign it. What happened was on the budget committee, now we understand that the actual funding's been cut, so right now the mayor, because the funding's potentially going to be cut, does not want to sign the quote.
Well, so what I want to make a motion for is to provide $100,000 for such that.
It's already appropriated, we just need the mayor's signature.
So, well, if he's not comfortable with it, I want to send a because he's not comfortable with it because we pulled this funding. I want to send so the money's already appropriated, I want to make a motion, guaranteeing that these funds that $100,000, up to $100,000, which I know that more than covers it, will be available for this effort so as to allow the county mayor to pay.
Let me be clear. Jen also approved it, correct? We took it, we sent it down to the mayor for a quote, it's down in his office. There's an appropriation. If the mayor, as your agent, signs the quote, we get a contract before the end of the year, and we get a PO, there's no need for the second appropriation. There's an existing appropriation. At this point, that's where we're at. I mean, there's no additional appropriation.
Well, it's true, because at the end of the day, this didn't get all the way through.
It's in your budget.
It's in the budget.
There's
It's in this
$10
year's
million
budget.
in the budget.
So it has to go all the way through. I mean, that's true.
So right now, the thing is, we have prepared it, the thing, as the agent for the county, statutorily, and you can ask the county attorney if I'm wrong, the county is the mayor is the general agent for the county. So we need him to be the one to sign the contract.
So is there any, can we not have a, let me ask this then.
You can do a resolution to ask
A
the mayor to
resolution
sign
to
it,
ask,
commission.
I would then, and I'll do it this way. I'm gonna make a motion, for a resolution directing the county mayor to sign this, given that there is already an appropriation for it. That's my motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Becker?
Can you refresh my memory when this, political move, was it last Thursday or the two that I was at?
Last Thursday. That was the very end.
Okay, so
I
I wasn't here Thursday, so I'm trying, I haven't
Well,
had
it
a
was
chance.
the second time. So this happened, there were two votes on this. The first time it failed, there was a motion,
The previous Thursday.
the previous Thursday.
Yeah,
To pull it, that motion failed. It came up again, as a new motion, because it was a new agenda, and that time it passed. So that's how it happened. You were not there, Mr. Becker.
okay, thanks for that info, thanks.
Let me be clear, I will have to do line item adjustments on the authority to be mounted.
That's fine. Any other discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, we have one no. All right, motion carries. Report of the county mayor is not here. Report of the finance director, go ahead, Mr. Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first item is actually a small presentation on PowerPoint, and everybody should, on their packet, have a copy of the slides. Couple of things to say, all your slides are numbered. The PowerPoint is only going to cover three things. One, it's going to cover how your property taxes are working between your capital projects and your debt service fund in the long term, where you're currently at on your budget and what items you have left to finish your budget this year. Each one of these three sections has a big page at the end that has questions and a question mark on the end. The slides are meant to run sequential, so it probably works best to have your questions at that point. I'm gonna try to go very slow, go backward and forward on several of the slides to see where I'm getting, where you can see where I'm getting stuck. Before we even start looking at the property tax, the first thing you need to consider is your rate. Now, understanding right now, the budget's built on 1.421, which is $1.42 per, $1.42. What that means, you've got 142.1 pennies, okay? To come up with your total property tax based on whichever fund you're looking at, you're just simply going to multiply them by the rate. If it's a fund other than schools, you're gonna use just $1.1 some odd million here, and for the education fund, just $1.1 odd million here. If you recall from the very first budget meeting, before you did your first hearing, I requested that you move all property tax out of the debt service fund. And then Mr. Schultz talked about this a lot. Your debt service fund has a balance that is too large. The reason it's too large is because you guys as a county, you issue bonds. If they could buy one of those bonds, by and large, those interest earnings are tax exempt. The county comes back and it buys taxable investments with those cash. So if on average your yield, you know, on the cash that you're investing versus what you're paying out is more, then you have to rebate that amount to the United States Treasury through the IRS. When the debt service comes into play, if it is a qualified debt service, which means there's certain qualifications, then you don't have to account for interest in your debt service. Your balance is too large, so it's not a qualified debt service, so we have to account for those. What that does is put you at a risk to have to rebate more interest to the IRS. So let's move on forward.
And that's what arbitrage is.
Arbitrage is the difference between the two earnings, between taxable and non-taxable. This is all the taxes in the county that are local. It doesn't count grants or anything else. I'll put you some nice little red arrows to make them easy to see. These are all the taxes that are affected by your property tax levy. The total will be set by your $42.1. Each individual distribution will be determined by distribution. Before we move on, we need to remember a couple of things. A couple of months ago, you sent the school department this revenue estimate here, so they're expecting that amount of your levy. And the other item is your highway public works. Your highway public works fund, you have to budget the 5-year average or you're gonna lose part of your gas tax. That's two things to remember before we move on. Is everybody following so far?
So that 140 is already been spent, correct? That's the
140 million has been sent on over to the Department of Education as an estimate. This is your debt service fund. At the end of this year, we conservatively estimate you're gonna have $37.3 million. Where that needs to be is between $10 and $12 million. So what did you do this year? We moved all the property tax to decrease the fund. But you removed the property tax, so it created a $12.7 million imbalance. If you look back to the prior slide, one thing you can say, that's still gonna leave you $24 million. You could do that 2 years, but you can't do it long term because your existing debt, you have 11 years of basically equal amortization schedule. So you're not gonna come up with that $12 million. Because that $12 million is the difference between your estimated revenues and your appropriations. So that's $12 million a year when you have equal debt. Well, we also need to look at the revenue side of that equation. On the revenue side, by and large, I'm not concerned, but I am concerned about this. If you notice, you have $4.7 million worth of, odd $1 million worth of revenue earnings this year for interest earnings, correct? It's on page number 9, and I'll slow down. If you look back in 2021, you had about $937,000, and in 22, you had about $335,000. Well, there's two things in play, and most of them here know. The interest rates and the earnings right now are significantly higher than average, so we can't bank on those for 11 years. You have something else in play. If you all remember, we've been spending out $37.5 million worth of ARPA funds very slowly. The last ARPA funds will be spent out in December 31st, 2026. So you've also got all this excess cash. So when we start going to the next, I'm going to do a very simple little calculation here of what you're going to need in the debt service. It doesn't account for growth, but it's going to take a couple of things into account. The first is changing your debt service fund, and everybody recalls that from about 2 pages back in 12.7. Does anybody need to go back and show you? This 4.7, if we back up this one slide, that is this interest right here. So we're gonna back that interest back out of your debt service, and then when I take that you can reasonably count on probably more than that, is I just took the average of those 2 years' earnings. That means, not this year, coming year, or the next, but the next year, you're gonna need to come up with $16.8 million. Where is the $16.8 million? It's clearly in your capital project fund. This is your capital project fund local funding over the last several years. Notice these 2 years, in all comparison, are huge. Last year, because we're shrinking debt service, and your most logical way to do it is move property tax over into capital, because you're gonna have future capital needs, and capital are one time. So we moved it over to capital, significant portion, $34.8 million. Everybody in this room can recall what you did with the big portion of that. $19.5 million is given to your highway department to be spent over the next 3 to 4 years. $4 million this year, $5 million next year. So if we take this $36 million, these are reoccurring pennies. So to do another small little calculation, we just go to the next page. So that's your $36,247,000. Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
We come back here at this top, that's your $36,247,000. Does everybody see that? That's your current year funding. This is on the original budget. This is just amounts that I took off of this table right here of some of your more normalized expenditures. I randomly chose some of them that if you average it out over time, other than bond issuances, should cover your capital projects based on history. So I came back and provided you 4 scenarios. We take the total, minus different amounts of capital, and minus the very conservative estimate of what you're gonna have back in debt service. That leaves these numbers here. What these numbers represent are reoccurring property tax revenues. These funds can be used for many purposes. Number one, your operating funds are under inflationary pressure, you have new programs, you can allocate them into operating funds because they're forever. You can put them up here to do more capital. You can take them and you can put them back into debt service to issue more debt. It has multiple purposes. The only thing that really restricts these pennies is a couple of things. One, it has to be allowable expenditure for your government.
Does be what?
It has to be an allowable expenditure for your government.
Okay.
And the other issue based on where you levy it. So for instance, if you levy those pennies in the highway department, you couldn't use them for the schools. You levy them in the general fund, you can't use them for the highway department. So where you levy them and how much you levy is really going to determine. And I would 100% recommend not decreasing the levy. You're on huge inflationary pressures and growth pressures. Come over here, and what happened on the last meeting, 4 cents was moved over into the general fund because of all this inflation and growth. So you've got this growth, which has been said many times, don't pay it for itself because of the reason, it's called inflation. So when you look at that, it brings your number down to the $31 million. Come through the same scenario. So let's just use any one of the 3 scenarios. And let's just run with the 31, say you want to leave $7.3 million a year, make your debt service fund whole. You're still going to have $7.5 million you can do for the purposes. The same thing, these are forever pennies, as long as you leave your levy. It can be used for operational funds, can be used for more capital, can be used for issuance of debt, any allowable purpose you levy.
Yeah, we've read this. This is.
Well, there's a question on the right.
Okay.
And then you come in here, and I know that's not how it looks, so this is just one possibility. I know that it's not gonna be all smooth like these scenarios. These are comparative purposes, and then we're over here. Does anybody have any questions?
Not a question, it's a comment. I want to go back to 2 slides back. One forward. One forward.
This is where you're currently at.
Yeah, right. So, looking at these bottom numbers, I'd be interested in kind of how you build up the scenario. That's okay, we don't have to get into that detail, because I know we got a lot to talk about.
Now you go back and say, really?
That's okay, we don't need to do it tonight. But, at the end of the day, if this is how we are building the long-term roadmap and projecting when you come under pressure for potential need for additional revenue, that bottom line tells you, given different scenarios, what your flex looks like. And this is why, I mean, I know, look, I'm gonna support it now, I lost that vote, this is why I was really wanting to push for 3 pennies being moved over as opposed to 4. So I wanted to extend that roadmap. 4 is not gonna break us, that's okay, but just as we're moving forward year over year, it's important to understand that, yes, we're running at a surplus right now, and we're running at a reasonable surplus, but for, Mr. Long's notes, we're also under a lot of pressure on the expense side. I don't think that any of the requests that, even the ones we cut, that the sheriff's department or the EMS, which was driving the majority of the increase, they're probably, when you start comparing them apples to apples with, you know, per capita services, they're not unreasonable. So the philosophy I have taken in working with Mr. Long here, and I hope it's one that's shared, is to build a predictable, understandable revenue and expense cycle so that we don't ever again, a 2008 scenario notwithstanding, but that we don't ever again, you know, get smacked in the face with either this commission or the next commission or the next commission after that, get smacked in the face with, oh my goodness, we have to have a tax increase. At least we can look ahead and communicate, here's how far our roadmap goes, here's how much surplus we have in recurring, and let's be reasonable with our departments and not expect them to go on just maintenance of effort forever, but let's also be fair and reasonable to Mr. Hyde's good points the last meeting, that, you know, if the average householder is growing by 3% and we're going to still grow by 7 or 8%, you know, keep that in mind too. That's our job. So anyway, I'll get off my wheelhouse here.
With that section 2, we'll cover this a little more detail before you wrap. But does everybody understand the general concepts right now? You have 2 things playing. You have a debt service fund you're trying to drain. You're predominantly putting in capital, but your capital has more money than you need over time, and you have other needs. But after a couple of years, you're going to have to plug, for a better word, plug the hole in your capital. The money is there to plug your hole, but until that time, the best use is 2, 1, to fix for inflation and other needs you have, and number 2, to give you additional capital for the future. Does anybody miss me before we move on to the decline?
So one question that doesn't seem to be registering is, we have a general fund that can be used for recurring.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a capital fund that is a one-time.
Mm-hmm.
How do those two,
It is the source of your levy. So, just like I said earlier, when there's 2 things that limit, and there's other things, but 2 things that really limit these funds here. Number 1, has to be allowable expense for the government. Number 2, where you levy it. If you levy it into a capital project fund, it has to be used for capital-like items. Otherwise, what you're going to be doing is taxing your citizens for one purpose and using it for another. And there's been court cases and everything else involved in that. We're not allowed to. So you can't levy it over here into this capital. Say my general fund's short and I want to use it. The only time you really have that option is when you levy the taxes and build your budget.
Let me say it a simpler way, and not that you don't say it simple, but you've got it. You know this in and out. The simple way to think about it, if you go all the way back to the, I think the second slide when you showed the total pennies, all the way back. Keep going.
About per penny?
142. You're
142.1 pennies.
142.1 pennies. That's your big bucket.
Okay.
This is your big bucket. Those are your, if you want to think of it in terms of a business, that is your gross revenue.
Okay.
You can levy it to any of these other buckets. So to answer your question,
You mean leverage?
I can levy it from this. I can levy it from the 1.42, the 142 pennies. I can levy those pennies to capital. I can levy those pennies in any year. I can levy those pennies to the general fund, to your question. And I can change those levies in different years. I can move them up and down with there are constraints on that. I can levy them as a general rule kind of wherever I want. However, I have to maintain maintenance of effort for for the highway fund, it's a 5-year moving average. For the schools, it is the last year, right? So there are different rules about where I levy them, right? So once I have a gross revenue of a 5-year moving average for the highway, I must always meet that, but how I get to it, as long as I meet that, I can levy the pennies however I see fit. Does that make sense?
This is your short answer, David. This is your levy. Once you put it there,
Then you can't.
versus here at the beginning of the year, once you put anything in the levy here, has to be used for capital. So, if you come in and you want to change that, now when you're building your budget, the time to do that. So you can decrease the levy in the capital and move to general fund. Once you put it in the levy and you tax these citizens out here, you have to use it for the purpose in the levy. So what your question is, why is the limit, I think your question deeper is, why is there a limitation on these funds can only be used for capital?
Right.
It's because you, as a county commission, levied them here versus the general fund. That's the only reason.
But it's not determined by where you get the revenue from.
Yes, it comes from, yes, it is,
Oh, it
yes.
does.
It's based on when you levy, or if you're gonna tax your citizens $1.42.
Yeah.
These are the purposes you're taxing them. If you tax them for this capital purpose, you have to use them for a capital purpose. If you tax them for the general fund, something allowed, debt service, debt service. Once you approve this right here and you start collecting those taxes, that determines what they can be used for.
Just a quick note. You do that your question has two answers. One actually has some caveats, but the simplest answer is during the budgetary process, you can, to your question, it doesn't matter where they come from, right? They all come from that 1.421.
Right.
However, to David's point, once you put them in one of those buckets, you can't move them anymore, because to his point, what you're saying to the beggars, I am taxing you 36 pennies for this reason, and then you're in the middle, you're like, oh, well, no, I'm gonna move that over.
Maybe we shouldn't say a bucket, maybe this is clear for David. There is 5 buckets. That 142 is broken in these pieces, so look at it as 5 levies. Once you put it in that bucket, it ain't coming out of that bucket unless you use it for the purpose for the.
When did we put it in these buckets?
You put it in
Every
a bucket
year when
every
you
year.
do the tax levy.
We're doing it right now.
resolution.
We're doing it
When
right
we
now.
set the tax rate every year,
Yeah.
Set a bucket.
we also do the levy of how that's split.
Of the percentages for those 5
Correct.
buckets.
So you don't have one bucket, let's just be clear, we're saying $1.42, once you set your tax rate, you have 5 individual buckets. You have to use them for allowable purpose within that bucket.
Okay.
Does that clear it up for you?
Yeah.
So right now, if everybody else is clear on the concept, we're gonna go into where you're at right now. This, several slides, I backed you up. This is where you're at now, and the first thing we're gonna do is I've got a small disclaimer on here, and I'm gonna explain it to you. And I sent it on the original email, and I sent it to all of you guys on the original, and ladies, well, ladies today, on the original email. We're not guaranteed this is here, and there's a very significant reason. You have more than the average number of large grants in the general fund. And let me explain how your grants are working. Anytime we do an encumbrance, we do a PO or a contract, we encumber the funds. When we encumber the funds, they show up as an appropriation. So if they were encumbered last year, they show up as an appropriation, they come out of this beginning balance. Okay? We have several grants. To match those up for you, we take your encumbrance or budgetary expenditures that are pass-throughs, and we match them to the revenues in the budget. If you remember, each year we come by and we have all these adjustments for things you haven't received. The reason for that is twofold. We're doing encumbrances and contracts. By and large, we can't claim for those grants until there's actual cash outlay. So, we may show the expense this year and the revenue because it's a grant, but it may not show up for a couple of years. So let's use your numbers. The other thing is this whole group of funds right here are governmental funds. And it only means, that's only important to you for one reason. Governmental funds are on modified accrual, which is really only important in this discussion for one thing. For revenues to be recognized, they have to meet 2 very significant criteria. Number 1, they have to be measurable. Well, if we have an invoice and a bill and a check, they're clearly measurable. The other one is they have to be available. They have to be available for general revenues, most within 30 days, and grants for 60 days. So you can see how the skew happens. We show this budgetary expenditure in year A. We go here and we actually pay it out in year C. C, and then over here in D, we get so far in the year we can't claim it, so you have this mismatch. We adjust those every year, and we do an analysis on it, but we don't show the commission because it's rather confusing, but we analyze all your budgetary disparities based on that. But that's something we disclaim, and that's very important to this entire discussion. Everybody get modified accrual? Okay. This fund is on full accrual. It's an internal service fund. It is your self-insurance fund. It's showing a $300 and some thousand usage. Do not think that's going to happen, and I'm going to explain to you why. There is several programs in that. You've got self-insured health, self-insured dental, on-the-job injury, which is in lieu of workers' comp, and self-insured liability. Your health and your dental, when I came here in 2009, was in a major deficit. And Mr. Schultz looked at it, it's got a lot of cash right now. The county bailed it out on cash twice. The agreement, at the time the county agreed to bail it out, and I was here when that was already that way, was that this fund had to cover itself long-term, and there had to be a plan. Part of the plan was your dental and your health costs will be determined by an actuarial. They come from Blue Cross. They are super conservative. They always overshoot those. So those are significantly overshot, and I know that that's their agreement with the county commission. Number two, for the on-the-job injury and liability, I take an actual trend. I come and discuss it with risk management, what they know is in the works, and then I discuss it with legal, what they know is in the works, and we come out with a reasonable estimate. I would be very safe to bet money with you that this fund's going to go the other way, and probably more than $1 million. So at this point, I don't think the committee has any action that they're going to need to take on self-insurance. These next two funds are your operational funds, and we'll discuss those on the following slides, because there's a lot more discussion on what these numbers right here mean. It takes a lot more analysis. This is the capital projects fund we just discussed, and you notice it shows minus 873. Looks confusing because we're talking about all the additional capital. Well, there's two things you got to think about here. We were talking about local funding, correct? You also have bond proceeds, and you also have grants through there. A couple of years back, you issued a bond to build, in the Resource Authority, to build a transfer station. Your money for $10 million of that is in this balance right here, but we've got budget next year and it's appropriations to be spent. So let's use that number up, negative $10 million. Also, on your local, think about that. You have, after tonight, you have $15.5 million of funds left for the road superintendent, correct? You're budgeting $5 million above it up there, so if you take that $15 million into account, you're really picking up a significant amount plus this reserve of local capital. Your next one, debt service, we've already talked about that. That's a planned decrease. Everybody understands that one. This is your drug control fund. It only has drug control fines, seizures, other things of that nature. It can only be used for drug enforcement or education. These are usually high. They're produced by the sheriff's department. We produce the revenue. But over time, this is self-funding. It's not really a concern for the committee. I don't think you have any concerns you need to look at it in any detail. This one is a concern, and we talked about it at the budget hearings, but I'll go into a little more detail since it's obvious about the revenue. If you recall, this has two revenue sources in it. One is a litigation tax that can only be used for the courthouse and jail, renovation, construction, or maintenance, or if there's excess, the county can use it for any other purpose, but there's no excess. The other one is actually a telephone commission from your inmate. Based on some federal regs coming down the pipe, that was cut, we think, around $500,000. That created most of this. This number right here includes also take care of a new item that we'll discuss tonight about the courtroom, your new courthouse in there. We do all the maintenance on it, so we don't have a good trend line on that yet. We just opened it the other year. So my point being is anything this is short over time will have to be covered by your general fund, but my recommendation as your finance director right now, we've got that number, is to leave this alone and do additional analysis on it in 2027 year when you do that some history.
Can you repeat the part about the inmate telephone?
The county, by resolution, is going to put all the inmate telephone commissions to help upkeep the jail. The rate we're charging, our understanding is we're renegotiating the contract because federal regulations / law has came down that we're charging the rate that's too high. So we've lost around, we think, about $500,000.
Out of?
Revenue.
Out of how much? We've lost $500,000.
That would have been $1 million some if we hadn't, we've lost most of your telephone commissions. With like 7 almost 700,000 down to 200,000, I think, somewhere. That's just a guess. I can get you the exact number, Mr. Becker.
Okay, thank you.
And these two items here are your main operational funds, which has salaries, operations, so we need to do some additional analysis on those, and I will do those on the following slide. These are the items you really need to consider when you start doing some analytics on these two funds. And there's four parts, and two we're going to talk about now. Your actual fund balance trend, is it actually going up or actually going down over time, versus your budgetary trends, is it budgeted to go up or down, and the delta, and what's causing the delta. And we're going to go through the deltas tonight, so after this slide, I'm going to go very slow, and there's going to be some graphing, so, and then on your long-term estimated revenue and expenditures, I'll mention those in section 3. So let's go over here, and this is very important. This is your budgeted usage. I put it in red because these are technically the amounts you're going to use. So, what this number represents here is your estimated revenue minus appropriations, usage of $4 million, okay? If you look, this same year, it went up $1.3 million. Some very important things to note about this graph, because to start with, it looks very, there's no pattern here, but there's very significant patterns, and I can show them with you, but you have to walk steps with me. First, let's look at this guy right here. Notice it's got a very small upslant, correct? Mm-hmm. So you have this up and down pattern, you have this, but some of your fund balance started growing here, well, but there's a, right from here to here started growing from that edge. And I can explain to you exactly why. You've kept this amount of estimated budgetary usage, for a better word, but you're in a growth county where your population's grown, and you've been under inflation, correct? So your budgets have grown every year. So let's just do something, I know it's not realistic numbers, but it will show you what's happened much easier. We're going to say your budget, revenue and expense, $100 million here, $100 million over here, okay? Because of growth. We've kept this the same. Let's say we are very conservative on our revenue estimates, and over time, if the economy's been normal growth, which it has been, we'll bring in 102%. 2% of $100 million, $2 million. 2% of $200 million, $4 million. So you're going to have an accelerated growth pattern, as long as you keep that flat. The other one, go back to your appropriation side, is also $100 million. We spend 97% at $100 million, $3 million left over. 97% at $2 million, $6 million left over. The $2 million revenue excess plus the 3 would be 5, and it would be 10, so it would accelerate this line. So that's when you keep this flat, you're in a growth county with inflation, it will cause a line to do this. This X here is for a very specific reason. Everybody remembers what happened in 2020. I came over here on Vietnam Base and seen 3 cars from Hendersonville to Galveston, went over here to Glenbrook and seen no cars, because I drove around that day to see what was going on. Everybody was on panic mode. What we did was decrease expenditures for this period right in here. We decreased revenues, and we received money from the feds and state. Well, a weird thing happened to Sumner County. Number one, a lot of people started shopping online, and we get those sales tax. Property tax wasn't affected. We're a growth county. And then it appears that a lot more people started shopping locally, and we actually blended some things in from Nashville. I know we got some tournaments that were usually held in Nashville, but they were held down in Sumner because we have a lake with some of the outdoor events. So we actually picked up revenues. So what we did was we slashed all these revenues, picked up revenues. So you got this huge acceleration. Well, out in here, where it started going a little less, everything started normalizing, but there was a push to stop growth. That was number one, so conservative revenues. Number two, everybody was having a lot of pressures on their salaries, so you had all this extra turnover, people couldn't get people to work. So you suddenly have all this extra money. Well, the push to stop growth didn't happen because of your sheer population growth. If anything, it's increased. You've got more building permits, you've got more revenue. So the effort was that direction, but it went the other direction. So when you come back in here, you look at this. Readjusted and reevaluated revenues and expenses, 1.3. This pattern, after reevaluated, adjusted for all this, is closer to this, with this being bigger. So one thing we can deduce from this really quickly is if you're anywhere from $4 million to about $5.3 million, you're probably in a normal economy going to break up or pick up some reserves. Everybody follow that right now? Well, let's go back a couple of slides. I'm going to give you the number back to 16. This number is much lower, but we have to disclose some stuff. Remember when I talked about modified accrual? This number has significant amounts. We've got grants going in that. You've got the health department and you've got the SWIG. Everybody knows what the SWIG grant is?
Yeah.
It's the water line in Portland and Westmoreland. We think that's really had a skewing effect of about $3 million. We think that number in reality, if you took out those grants and generally not run through the general fund, that's about $5 million. So when we slide back over here, what do we see? Make sure everybody's following me. Your $5 million is somewhere, less than those two together. So right now, my point being, with the money you've moved, if the economy's anywhere near normal, we think you'll pick up fund balance. Does everybody follow those? I can slow down on a particular concept. Number two is your house. I'm sorry.
Can you go back? Where are you saying the five? Go back like 2 paragraphs. What you just said. No.
Oh, if you take here, this is where we say estimated revenue and expenditures. So your estimated expenditures or appropriations was about $4 million more than your revenues, correct?
Okay.
What we planned, but your delta is this whole thing, because you actually went up 1.3, so a delta is a variance from your budget or expected. Your expected is $5.3 million. That's with revenues adjusted here. So with the normal economy, with that $5 million, we think you're probably going to pick up a small amount of fund balance. If you have a recession, you may lose some, but look at this number, $41 million compared to these. You're in a point right now where ultra-conservatism for 1 year does not necessarily have to hold true. That's my point. Does everybody follow on that? You've got strong reserves. What are reserves for? One-time expenditures or revenue shortfalls or money.
But if we're, just to be clear, assuming a not even a normal year, but just even a non-catastrophic year, we are very unlikely to be.
Following a 2008-9,
yeah.
you are probably going to pick up fund balance. If you have 8-9, you're not. This fund, because property tax will significantly impact, this fund, you will probably not lose a noticeable amount of fund balance. Where you're going to hit the biggest hits is going to be potentially your building permit, your sales tax, which are in 2 places, the schools and your capital projects right now. Your capital projects, you can forego capital projects. That's why I requested you move sales tax into capital projects, because capital construction is more variable than your amortization of debt. Your amortization of debt has no yield, your capital projects do. That's why I requested to move all of the second half of the unincorporated into capital away from debt service. Very specific reason. You have control somewhat over your capital. You have no control over debts you've already issued. So does that make sense where we're coming from? This I only show you for one reason. This is the last 5 years. These are the same. I only made that red because it's unassigned. We are looking at unassigned fund balance. I know most of you probably didn't know this. What unassigned fund balance means is fund balance you can use for anything. When we go through, you have other fund balances. And I'm going to explain to those, the other fund balances are restricted. Means they're restricted by constitutional, enabling legislation, contracts. They're restricted in some form. Legally, you guys can't get a hold of it. The other two may be committed or assigned by you, the board, or the budget committee, or the county commission. If you notice, they generally parallel. There's one big change here, and most of you probably know what that is. The county made a $10 million payment out of the hospital, that was predominantly out of the hospital committee fund, which was big right there, to do the overpass from 386 to 109. We made a $10 million check out to DDOT to get that particular project in the works. Anybody have any minor questions here? Then we go over here, and this is the highway fund. If you look at this, this is very predictable. If you go back, it goes down, and it was very predictable. Notice what year we're looking at. COVID year again. 2 things happened in COVID year. They did some paving projects for some, I think, cities. They got a big reimbursement that went in there, and then that's the same COVID effect. You take it, it's rather flat. We have, this is their estimated fund balance, and notice it's getting closer. Notice there's a huge delta. You know what's causing most of that? Is unspent appropriation. Prior to Mr. Ellis's time, we had a significant issue of getting estimated expenditures versus budget. So we estimated all budgets to be spent, which will cause this huge delta. Here we've been working with Mr. He's not been here long enough to really get into it, but we've been working with him some and getting a better estimate on those year-ending estimates. My recommendation is the finance department, even after I'm retired, keep working more with Mr. Ellis's department to get a better handle on unspent appropriation. But if you look at this and then we slide back to your highway fund, $1.14 million. Every year you've had that much budgeted. Reality, you probably won't use that much, and one of the reasons is you have the $5 million over in the capital projects fund. I do have a few concerns this year because you've got more state aid, and because of the effect of claiming it, and because of the effect of potential deferred revenue. This number here could be potentially off, but you should capture most of it up in here or later here. But we don't want to make that negative. Because the same effect we talked about earlier could be more significant on the highway because they've got more state aid in the next past year and the next couple of years. Does anybody have any questions on this section? So that was the section I thought was the hardest, I'll be honest. The first one I thought was easier, okay. What you have left? Departments and agencies have to be notified of the hearing. Finance is going to be doing that between now and Friday. Okay, we all know that. We're going to come back and re-estimate your revenue and expenditures, and the reason that's very important on your next draft is you want to have your beginning fund balances as accurately as possible. I'm going to come back and reevaluate all your revenues and report to the committee on any major variances. And then you need to have a long-term planning workshop. You have one each year. You need to have a second set of hearings with county departments. But one thing to remember, between when we notify them and the second hearing, you have to give them 10 days to do another presentation. So you have to have at least a 10-day gap between when we notify them, say this coming Monday, so you have the next hearing. And then the first budget hearing with the Sumner County Board of Education, they should have your budget between now and June 1st. So what may work for the committee, you may want to think about is you could come in and do the second hearing, this first hearing, and long-term planning in one daytime meeting, and grab them all at one time and spend some more time. I know last year, you were rushed on the long-term planning. We've got those, we've been waiting for your first draft. We've got those interactive sheets I've created. You can even look at revenues, it's according to how much time you want to spend on it. I would recommend you spend at least 6 hours looking at those long-term planning sheets. I've developed them for you, but there's a lot of assumptions as a committee, voting members, you need to really look at. The next one is the second hearing with the school department. Remember, you have to give them 10 business days, all these are business days so far, to give a second proposal if you deny the first one, so you're going to need a second if requested. So if you approve their budget, no second one. Then you come in, the first draft has to be published. What happens here is if you deny this third one, they have a right to the county commission directly, so we'll have to wait 10 more business days before we publish it. Well, once it's published, not 10 business days, it has to be at least, we're on the county commission, but it has to be 10 business days before they consider it, so it pushes you forward. And then you have to have a public hearing of the commission, and then that's when the department, including the school or whomever is unhappy, has a chance to do a direct proposal to the county commission. One thing to remember, best if we have a budget by June 30 for everyone. Required to have a budget by August 31st. You don't have one by August 31st, you have to have special approval from the state. I've talked to the state before, my understanding is going to have to be something catastrophic before you get one. So everybody needs to, my recommendation, aim for a goal of June 30, know that your very last day is August 31st. Does anybody have any questions?
So at the end of the day, we need to set, the next step is that we need to set one, I think ideally, one hearing first week, maybe second week of June, to catch all of the county departments' first post kind of appeal presentation and the schools.
Yes, sir. That's my point.
So we can try to set this now, or we can go back and forth on email.
The schools won't have to potentially until June 1st, so you may want long enough to digest it before you send it to them.
Well, I was going to say, so it's second week. So it's the second Thursday?
June 12th.
June 12th. 1 month from now. Does anybody have any problem with that date? Then we can start it 9 AM. I mean, we would need it would be another day.
My question is, if you want to do the connecting one with the, education committee, then you may want to do like your hearing during the day.
We've done that.
And then in the evening, like at three or four, do it with the education members. Last.
I mean, I can coordinate with well, I mean, Mr. Becker,
He's the chair of it.
yeah, you're here, so what would be good with your committee?
Okay, I was just looking at my calendar for the 12th. What was your question?
So just like we typically do, there would be two kind of sessions here. In the morning, I think what Mr. Long is suggesting, and I would agree with, we would do the county hearing, you know, let's say 9 to noon, and then 1 o'clock to 2, and then we could do another break, and then afternoon, we would have the joint hearing with education, just like we did last year. I think, I don't remember the timing, but we are gonna have to have a joint meeting.
You have a joint meeting every year.
Yeah.
But
We did,
I don't recall it ever being during the
we did it on a
day.
Monday night.
Yeah.
We did it
it's always
Monday
been at
night.
So we can do it during, I mean, if you wanna do it on the evening of the 12th.
I'll have to look. I mean, I don't know if I'm available on the 12th, so. for
All right,
David, I mean,
here's, we can just, look, I can call these, we don't have to try to set it here. I'm gonna tentatively look hard at that week, and the 11th and the 12th, if folks could let me know if they're not able to make those dates. Okay.
Item number B, Chairman.
If anybody, so, hey, first off, thank you for this presentation.
Yeah, thanks.
Like this, I will probably ask to get these and put them up on, like, these are really good.
We can post.
We need to post.
We'll post this on just like the other ones in attachment for budget.
Yeah, well, I'll work with IT, or maybe just put it out on Facebook pages, but some of those graphs are just really, because this stuff gets really archaic and arcane, and even if you're in it all the time, you can kind of get confused, and you guys did a really good job. And I just, for any citizens out there who, bless them, if they want to dive into it. I'm sure the beggars would enjoy, delving into this on their own time, but anyway, it was really good work, and I appreciate it.
It was great
I
work.
hope it answered the big three questions that I received from most of the community members. Is everybody ready for me to move on?
Yes.
Longest item I ever on my agenda.
Do we need a 5-minute break or continue to push? All right, continue, go ahead.
Item number B is just the financial statement memos, basically stating that any commissioner, anybody that wishes to have a copy, we will provide one, but it will be posted on our website by the Monday of the county commission meeting. Item C is transfers, and item 1 is all the payroll items. They are transfers between line items. They're generally to do with.
All of C.
Motion, group and approve all of C.
Second.
All right, we have a second. I do, just because these are large numbers, I'm gonna support these, I've looked at them, but, Mr. Long, can you, I would ask that you give a little, just an overview of what's going on with EMS.
EMS, basically, they have a couple things. They have ALS, BLS, 12 and 24-hour shifts. Part of those large movements between ALS and BLS, we try to keep up with that in the paramedics and EMTs for tracking for their expense. The other one is they've had some vacancies and workloads, so they're moving money from salaries to overtime and part-time. But that's what all the changes are related to, basically normal operations.
Any other questions here? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. You're on 2.
Okay, item number 2 is other interbudgetaries and,
Oh, did you do all of C or all of C?
All of C.
Okay, so you were on.
oh, you also got interbudgetaries? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Was the second good with that?
Yes.
I vote good with that as a voting member. Okay. Did anybody, because, were there any people who voted on that who had any issue with that vote being including other?
It was all even transfers, right? There's
Yes,
no new money.
yes, sir. It is
No new money.
between non-salary line item and non-salary line item. Zero new dollars.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to make
Mr.
sure.
Long, go ahead.
We are on item number D, and let me explain that one. Mr. Ellis come to talk to me because of inflation. He's moving along really good because of the weather. He's paving. He said he may have to slow down the rest of the year because he was running out of money. My recommendation was from to come forward to the budget committee, because you're allocating the money over the next 3 or 4 years to get as many roads as possible done. So I recommended he come on over to the budget committee, request an additional million, and have it forwarded on to the county commission, make a request to use some of his money this year. Otherwise, he's gonna need to slow down and do more, those other things they do, such as, they do several things, grass, everything else they do. But I think your push right now is to improve the road situation.
This is the
I
money
recommend
that he's
it.
already been
Yes.
allocated.
That's out of his 19,
That's out of it, he's pulling it from that.
So I make a recommendation
So the
to go
motion
forward.
approved,
with-
second.
And this is previous, we talked about, was it 4 or 5 million?
3 so far. When I mentioned the 4, it's already baked in, based on if you do this tonight.
But just to be clear, when we built out the 19 million, we estimated 5 million a year times 4 years.
Right, but
As a
so we
service.
talked about, was it 3 or 4 million a week ago, or the
It
previous
was
week?
3, and he's asking for $1 million more to make 4, and then he's asking for $5 million this year.
So this million will get him through to.
$4 million.
$4 million this year, and that will get us through this year, and then asking for 5 next year.
Okay, but is this with the 4 million that we approved?
You approved 3.
We approved 3, okay.
This makes $4 million.
This makes 4 million.
For this year.
For this year. Okay.
Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Item E is the Long Hollow Drainage Project, and basically what's happening.
Wait, we don't need to, do we need to?
You need to sit down on the county commission.
Do we need to have a second, second reading on that? Probably.
Yeah, you would need a second, or you need to waive it.
Are you good with, waiving for the second
Oh,
reading?
absolutely.
Second was good with it. Any voting member have a problem? I'll go ahead and recast. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
May I ask if we could put this particular item up on the screen to show how
Yeah,
we're
go
moving
ahead.
money? So let's just go to the long and the short of this. We're doing Long Hollow projects. We're moving, project management around. The county engineer's kind of taking the front lead, and he's working on the project. He wasn't aware that you cannot amend a project for something that's outside the scope. He went ahead and done it, we started the work. There's nothing notorious, bad, or anything, he just did not understand the policy. Well, what that's resulted in, because it's ARPA funds and it has to follow federal procurement, we can't use ARPA funds. So what I'm asking you tonight is to, if you look at that transfer, to shift around the funds, but if you go down to, I'm gonna show you exactly how I'm asking you to shift the funds. Because basically all we're doing, and it will have to go to the commission because it's a between major categories, but we're just asking you to shift some funds around. It's on page number, you need the page number, you have.
For some reason it wouldn't let me. There
Go
we go.
past the transfer sheet right past there should be, keep going. Keep going. Right there. Oh, sorry. Back it up if you can, just a little bit, okay. Back it up just a little bit.
I can't,
You can't control and scroll it. Just
not, well, it's not on my computer, it's on Mac.
Where's that mouse that goes around and on? Give me that mouse and hit control and on. Hit control and pull the scroll out. Hit the control button and scroll.
I know, but you can't,
Okay, you
it's
can't.
not on my computer.
We'll just scroll up and down, everybody. Go to the top.
Oh, I'm sorry,
There we go.
never mind.
Okay. This is your total ARPA projects, okay? It's all the projects we've been discussing for several years now. You notice this is more than that, I'm gonna explain. You can use certain items for revenue replacement, but they can't be used for general and vice versa. So this is a good thing. It means we can reallocate more money into revenue replacement if we need to. So the minus and plus here is a good thing. This is additional amounts that you funded into projects from your local capital. Because this error didn't meet the federal procurement, we can't use federal money, but what I'm asking you to do, and it's $50,000 some odd dollars, it's the change order, $50,000, I think, $325. So what I'm asking you to do is come in and decrease this by $50,325 here, and budget $50,325 here. Decrease this one by $50,325 here, and budget $50,325 there. So, the county commission is gonna be out of no money, it's local money, so it's no longer subject to federal procurement. Worst case scenario, we may have done something that was, for instance, when we bid it and we pulled something in outside the scope. This is a very complex project. Your county engineer spent many hours working on it. It's got many moving parts, and our only concern was the way it was written. When we talked to the ARPA, it appears these were outside the scope. You may make an argument they're in there, but the best thing for us to do is to fund it from local funding. So what I'm asking, come in and
I'm gonna make a motion to shift the $50,325, but I wanna get it on queue. there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second, I want to get on the queue here. My question is actually not about this 50,325, it's about the project writ large. You know, this project seems to be, beginning to give me a little bit of concern scope creep. So, I guess I have a couple questions, and if we need to ask the engineer, that's fine, but what is our total expected cost for all phases of this, one? And where does the line, conceptually, kind of where is the line between a drainage project to improve and mitigate against county-related risk versus private property improvement? That's the question I have here. Like, I want to mitigate, one, I just want to understand the total scope of the project so that we don't just continue to go, and two, they're related, right? I mean, the line, the boundary of where this should end, in my view, is where we have mitigated water runoff related risks to county highways. And once that's done to some level of degree, anything above and beyond that is, you know, I don't think it's really, we start to get over into, you know, are we improving private property? And I realize that can be a gray line, but I really want to try to understand this. Go ahead.
And I'll talk about the first part. When Mr. Sutter came by with the project, me and him talked some about your exact concern. We're prohibited from work on private property, but we are for stormwater. My understanding, talking with Josh, is all the drainage off these are completely stormwater related to improving our road. So the water sitting on the property is draining into our roads and causing issues. At the time, we actually, based on what Mr. Sutter told me, I had him to go talk to legal to make sure they were in agreement as far as stormwater versus, so that one, unless something's changed in the scope, we think we're okay. The other one is, that's something for the engineer, but I'm not sure you'd have to ask, I'm not sure if we're prepared to talk about that.
Well, go ahead, Mr. Klein.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Sutter, I would just, I guess I've gotten the answer on that, my second question, which is, yes, I know that we're improving private property, but it is so long as we are doing so with the intent and the necessity of preventing water runoff on the.
We're not improving the property, we're redirecting water out of the roadway.
Well,
Right.
We're not improving, we're just redirecting.
And there's easements secured, all that.
as long as we're I'm fine, but I do still want to understand what the total, you know, what our total cost that we're getting in over the course of this entire project all made. I mean, do you have a ballpark?
Yes, sir. So I think this is phase one right here, and it's about $700,000. The remainder of the project, and the trouble with drainage projects, and I hear what you're saying about, you know, let's fix what's in the road. This is right, but the way that drainage projects work is, unfortunately, you gotta go back, you gotta figure out where the problem is upstream and fix, you know, and get it fixed as well. And so what we're doing essentially is we're starting downstream, working our way up on this thing. And so phase one was about $700,000. I believe phase two, is pretty extensive, and it's, we did, for the budget request for the coming fiscal year, it's about $900,000 we have in there, give or take. So in total, it's about $1.6 million.
But we do believe we're going to be done at phase two.
Yes.
We do, so there's not going to be a phase three?
No,
I'm assuming, you know.
It culminates in, Commissioner Klein's been there with me before, there's a regional basin, that really big detention pond, if you remember, that's where that's essentially like the eventual terminus of this project. That's where we get that repaired and put back like we need it to be, and everything down.
So that is the length, so there is a specific length of ditch, we're calling it.
It's a creek, it's a T-dash creek, yeah.
I believe there wasn't initially two phases. I believe we bid it all as one project. It came back so expensive. It was broken into multiple phases.
That's why.
So the scope didn't change, it's just broken because.
Well, but I would be remiss if I didn't, you start looking at something like that, and the thing that starts as one phase and it's two, I mean, I just.
You end up fixing the whole.
You end up, right, and I just want to make sure that we have a definitive.
Yes, sir. your original question, Mr. Lawing had the exact same questions for me and pelted me with them for a while until I finally wrote them down and sent them to legal and got their concurrence on it. And so when we look at the drainage project, we talk about, there's need all across the county. This is probably one of the longest standing drainage issues that I'm aware of. This has been going on since the 90s, 80s, And so this is meant to fix, it's very rare you get to fix a drainage problem, but this is meant to fix a drainage problem in the long term. But when we look at them, when we look at a drainage problem, first and foremost, does it impact public right of way? Is there a public issue that is solved? Yes. Is it an issue that is too big for individual property owners to solve?
Yeah, there are multiple properties.
That's right.
Require coordination.
And part of the issue with this, that you have these long-standing issues that have been going on for decades, and part of the problem is that the county really, I don't know if that's the previous administrations or anything, but they haven't really stepped up to the plate to fix it. And so what happened is, in the absence of that, individual property owners have tried to correct their own drainage issues. It made it worse. It made it 5 times. And so we're ripping a lot of that stuff out, we're ripping all that stuff out and fixing it.
Can I make one clarification for the minutes? We're not improving private property. We were working on it, but we're working on it for stormwater. There's a big difference. We can't improve private property for
I
years.
use bad verbiage, but Mr. Klein.
And Josh explained it really well to me when we walked the job. We spent an hour and a half out there. He explained the hollows and then the project up above it. There was barely a planning and engineering department. Maybe there wasn't one on the hollows. And so the design was so bad that right out the chute they had problems. And it has just gotten worse and worse as people have tried to rectify the problem.
Somerset Downs upstream, which is a very long project.
Just because we're trying to.
Yeah, I just want the public to hear this on record.
David, Josh, and the others want to set up the planning department. There wasn't really a true department.
I'm gonna go ahead and move us back into order here. We have a motion on the floor. The motion was to move.
It'll need to go to the full commission.
Three major categories. So do I need to have?
It's not any new money, it's just because it's a
Do I need to have waive second reading?
No, because it's not a new appropriation, you do need to.
So I have a motion and a second question on it?
I have one question. The EMS monies that is going from capital back to the ARPA,
Yes, sir.
what projects are those?
That's your construction of the, is it the Westmoreland? The Westmoreland, so we've got the construction of the building and putting all the stuff in there. And so, there's a couple things that's very important today. If you notice these numbers, it means we can allocate more money back and over to, if we need to revenue replacement, which is restricted.
Right.
And we've also spent money here, that if, say, one of these projects we were challenged on, we could technically move it over into here. So we did that for a particular reason. We wrapped the project because the feds challenged us on any of our expenses. We have other allowable expenses that can move. That's why we set it up this way, and also if we run into a problem such as this.
Any other questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
To go to the full board.
So, just note, for the record that Mr. Lambert was not here on that vote, but we still have.
It's the majority present.
Yeah, we're fine. With this majority present.
It's majority present. Yeah.
Included.
As long as you have a majority
That's fine.
present.
What about
the way?
The vote,
The vote.
majority present.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because he's listed, I mean, this is really just for minutes, he expects out. Okay. Doesn't matter. All right, I don't think you have anything more.
That's the end of my
All
report.
right, so we'll move on here. I have a quick update on the city of Gallatin. I owe an email, this is my fault, I asked last week, Mr. Lyon, for you to send me an email with the contract signatures, which we have for the improvements to the road.
It's already started.
It started today.
It started today.
So and the reason I asked for those, and Mr. Hyde, this goes all the way back 3 months ago, I am sending these in an email to Ms. Brown. I have called Ms. Brown and spoken with her about these. I expect that we will be receiving our money forthwith after we deliver these. And if we don't, then we can have
it when I see it.
other discussions.
So you're keeping it on?
All right, we'll just leave that on old business. I have a due out, an email. Millersville Library, go ahead.
Can you clarify that one, sir?
Yep.
you had 6949, you did some transfers at the top, they still need $1,947. They're asking for it from unassigned fund balance. Looking through their budget, it's gonna be very difficult for them to find the remaining, and we all know what this is for. It's for health insurance changes, so I would
Motion to
recommend you
approve.
approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Be waiting a second since it's,
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Do we need to wait for the bill and?
Yeah, we'll wait for,
We'll take a vote.
we'll do a 5-minute break. 5 minutes. So I'm taking a vote, to pass the, additional, $1,947 to the Milledgeville Library and waive the second reading. That's my motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. The election commission budget issues, Mr. Long, I'm gonna happily handle this one.
And I think we've discussed this particular item. Can we put it up on the screen, page 55?
We've beaten this one heavily, but,
And does anybody need me to go over the analysis on the election commission
No.
workers again?
okay.
Does everybody understand completely the comparisons we made? I received an email, and I think I forwarded it to you, Mr. Show, from Miss Ashley, that she wasn't planning to be here, she wasn't sure if she needed to be. It may be at this point that we're getting toward the end of the fiscal year, you may want to send an invitation for her to come and discuss this, because at this rate, we're going to be at the end of the year, probably exceeding the budget.
Have we, but, so, I have a question. So, we're exceeding budget, but have all the workers been paid?
Yes.
So, this, I mean,
Remember, there was a,
Haven't we asked her to come before?
we have.
Yeah.
the thing is, you guys
I'm
remember.
confused when she said she wasn't sure she needed to be here.
To be fair to her, we did not, I tried to get her to come to the last, but she did have to the last, budget hearing, but she was,
On Thursday.
right, and
Got
but
it.
she was, they were in a meeting with the state.
Sure.
She needed to be in, so that's a,
I was just, got it.
that was not a,
Where are we with my recommendation, I made the other day of budget?
yeah, about auditing. So we took that to, we discussed it in the audit committee, I believe we had there was a, we had it.
There was a lot of discussion.
It was to have a representative. I thought you were going to work on getting it together, to have a representative of the comptroller's office.
So we were going to request the comptroller to
A
come here, but
representative of the Secretary of State's office to come and meet with us about
it
the,
wasn't, I don't think
That
I
was
was
audit.
supposed to send
That
that.
was
We-
audit.
It was the request was for the
that
mayor.
may tie into what we're wanting to do here with another meeting.
There was a
I didn't know who all needed
So,
There was a request from the comptroller, and I think the
and the
secretary.
secretary, a representative from the Secretary of State, but it wasn't from me to do it. I believe and I have to go back to the minutes. I believe that it was, who did we pin that hat? I'm happy to do it, but I thought we pinned the hat on the mayor on that one.
No, it was
That meeting,
Was it me? Or if it was me, I'm happy to do it.
that meeting
I can't recall, I'm not gonna say
was
for
the
sure.
audit chairman working with the law director.
Okay, so it wasn't me. I didn't think,
The meeting that Mr. Hyde is referring to with those two individuals was the audit.
So, we said that the legal department would set the meeting.
The legal department was to reach out to both of those entities and then let me know, and try to pinpoint a date that makes
that's.
What people from these entities, I'm not even clear on who needs to come. Somebody from the state election commission, or?
when we talked about in the meeting.
We talked about it, this part I recall, it was somebody from the, Secretary of State's office, somebody from the comptroller.
Correct.
No, and we were supposed to send I know that as a group, we were supposed to send a request to find help, and that we were gonna set a date for that based on when their availability was. I just did not think it was me that was supposed to do
It
it.
was Don. It was
Okay.
My recommendation.
whoever the audit chairman is.
So,
Could I recommend maybe at the next budget committee meeting, without them to it? Because you really
well,
need to
we
look at
need,
this budget.
what we decided, and I don't think we need to make any changes here, was to send the, just to for you to send that request and find out their,
Just simply somebody from the Secretary of State.
and somebody from the.
That's a pretty big issue.
A representative from the Secretary of State's office who has an understanding, we don't know who they are, who has an understanding of, election, the operations of.
Operations and fiscal management of the
Of
election.
local,
commission.
county level election operations.
Okay, wouldn't that be the State Election Commission that would be involved in that, or? I just don't know. That's
We
why I'm
didn't, well,
asking.
we didn't know.
Okay,
So we're
I'll
getting,
get somebody here. Do we have a date in mind
we were
to
asking,
work with?
well, we were asking them for their availability within, I think, gave ourselves like a month.
Can you try to invite them maybe to the next budget committee meeting, that way we can discuss it before you exceed your budget, because
We can, as part of it, I'll make a motion, I'll make a motion just to make it
I
super
mean,
clear.
really, let me just
Go
clarify.
ahead.
It does make more sense, I think, where some of the confusion is it was decided during the audit committee, but it makes more sense for them to come for the budget committee.
That's fine.
Questions, yeah.
Yeah,
So that's where there's sort of
We can make a
overlap.
suggestion of the next, which we haven't set a date yet for, but we can give them we can look ahead what that Monday would be. Do it our next regular budget meeting. Just
Ask them
request
about
that
the
they can come.
The regular budget meeting is June 9th.
The regular budget meeting, not the next,
Oh.
not the,
Okay, yeah,
Not the twelfth. So
Yeah.
shoot for the
Shoot
9th.
for the
yeah, let's do
You
that.
have to give them quite a bit of time to know, so,
And I've also got GNRC coming at that same meeting.
fine with me.
Okay.
Well, remember that one. We'll just have a, go ahead, Mr. Becker.
Well, I was pointing out there.
Go ahead.
I just want to remind those members on the audit committee, the next audit committee, scheduled meeting was going to be based on when they said they could meet. That was supposed to be reached out, and then we were going to set the next meeting.
Right, that,
You'll try to have it before budget.
You're right, but what Mr. Long was stating was, I think, more efficient, and so we're kind of overriding that a little bit.
So you're just going to cut the audit committee on that?
We're just gonna try to bring them to budget, because
could you invite the audit committee?
We can have an audit committee concurrently.
Yeah,
concurrently.
Invite the audit committee into the budget and have a joint meeting.
Yeah, we can-
Continue that.
we can do it that way too.
You know, you do joint meetings all
We
the
just
time.
need a
You do
time.
joint meeting.
We just need a time, and they may not be able to make that time. So we're gonna suggest it, and if they can meet it, then we'll have a concurrent meeting, and we'll just combine audit and budget the same way we do education and budget, we'll do the education budget.
With our first half.
Because there's some things in audit that could go into executive session possibly, and other members wouldn't be allowed to go in. Not even commissioners, for audit committee.
Well, then we could carve those out at meeting. I mean, it would be, we would be able to manage. And then, again, they may not be able to, at the end of the day, strategically, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get them here within a month. And we're gonna giving them a target date, if they can make that, then we will find a way to work around it. If they can't make that, then we'll schedule another audit meeting. We'll just do it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, there's more people on the committee there, I just want to make sure you guys remember that.
Yeah, I did. That's why when Mr. Hyde suggested that it was my task, I didn't remember it being my task. I actually thought it was the mayor, but you were right, it was you in the law department. Anyway, we have an action here. I don't know if there's anything that we need to take. Any other item? I mean, that's really our next step.
No, sir.
Okay, so let's, anything else that we want to do on election? We have our next steps, you know what we're doing. Okay, general session, $50,000 for fund, from fund balance to juvenile detention. This is a second reading. I think that's.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Request from financial management to approve up to $60,000, from unassigned fund balance for the finance director search. I'll move for approval. I may have.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? I'll get it to you. I just have one question for those.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and, you know, Mr. Baker had mentioned that it seemed high. From my memory of headhunters, it is high, but I don't know, this is a whole different animal, you know, getting a finance director.
I was gonna ask, do you have any insight into?
We talked to financial management, we had one of the members say that he had reached out and it was 30%. I have sent a couple emails, really haven't heard anything back from those recruiting firms. Actually, a while back, so I need to reach out to different ones.
Was this, Mr. Kerr who said that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But
I mean, he would know.
another point I wanna make here is, I believe it shows this under finance, but the question is, in reality, the choice is the financial management committee or the mayor, and I'm not sure, at this point, we've really determined who's going to contact the recruitment firm. Is that art, so do we really wanna move forward at this time?
I would make a suggestion that we move forward. I clearly believe this is a 1981 decision, and financial management, in my opinion, should proceed forward regardless of anything else in finding someone for this position.
Mr. Becker, then.
Yeah, the county currently does not have a 1981 financial management committee.
Correct.
So there is no financial management committee that's asking this one.
It was the 2012 committee, you're correct.
Correct. So if it's under 1981, then we just need to table it for now.
All right. Mr. Klein.
I just wanted to make sure that the 60,000 was up to 60, not to
Yeah, it
exceed
says,
60.
that's what it says, up to, so
Okay.
we don't have to use all that. Here's, I think, my opinion is that whether it's 1981 or 2012, we need to get the ball moving. Could we wait a little while? Probably, but I don't see there's any reason to. From the citizen comments earlier, yes, this may be a little bit high, but if Mr. Kerr has been in this business for many years, and it's an up to, so I'm comfortable with it. Any other questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
One no. Okay.
We'll come back next month for the second.
We're gonna come back next month for a second. Health department,
Let me give you an update of where we're at on the health department.
okay.
We have the bids back right now, we're evaluating the bid. The low bid we have is $2,229,000. It is below the, budgeted amount, so if this bid, after the architect is done and we get finished evaluating it, if it does meet specs, then we'll award the contract and move forward with the health department.
Okay. Any other discussion? We don't need to take much.
No, it's just an update for the committee.
Patriot Software?
That one I'm not really involved in, it came up from another committee.
I don't know.
It's to
That's
do with
where
the.
you were gonna get with, Tunnel and
Oh, this
figure out
is
the
I thought
analogy.
what we decided to do that ultimately was to pass was to do the 6,500 for the,
No, the last time we met, all I remember is you were gonna get with Tuttle about what he needed to get it done, or if it was
I'm
even
dropping the ball
doable.
here.
I think this came up from, is it legislative it came from? It was to do with the,
Property assessment.
properties, with the.
Yeah, it's the property assessment, and what we had on the floor, I'm just gonna write myself a note here.
Well, we didn't get very much detail.
Because there was something that came up through, it went through legislative, and I think it almost went on to the county, onto the floor, if I recall. And it was $6,000 for, we had two options, and there was $6,000. The lesser of them was $6,000 basically for data tag PDFs. And I know the property assessor I asked, was actually pretty happy about that.
Can I tell you one thing that may be important? You guys were discussing, I believe from what I recollect, there was a discussion that maybe IT could do it. Right now, our IT director is actually upstairs because we have an item he told me he would do that. Do you want me to go upstairs and get him?
Can we just do that real quick and just grab him? Because I actually spoke with him, I did speak with him about this.
I can call him or text him.
To see if he's there, and let's,
My understanding, I talked to him earlier, he is upstairs, he's waiting for his last item, so,
without objection,
Robert would be the one to know.
without objection, I'd like to just,
And I think he's listening to the tape, so he's probably on the way anyway.
without objection, I'm gonna, let's just hold this, and we'll move.
Okay.
Let's just move. All right, new business, Portland Airport, grant match, $7,925. Any others, is there a second? Second, all in favor?
He's waiting the second.
Waiting a second.
Majority.
Everybody voted, everybody was.
Yeah.
Okay. So so moving on to appropriations to A2, finance, additional funding for trustees commission,
You want me to explain that?
$60,000, go ahead.
Trustees commission is based on revenues and it's a percentage. Remember the graph we showed with all the extra interest earnings? You have to pay trustees commissions on that. We didn't anticipate them being as high as they are, so we think we're gonna be about $60,000 short, to cover the rest of the year.
Motion. Have a motion to approve. Is there a second on it?
We have statutory pay them.
We have to pay these.
Second, sorry.
Motion, second, all in favor?
Aye. Wait a second.
Oh, yeah, I'm good, wait a second.
Yes.
Second is good with it,
Yes.
second was good with it, motion carried unanimously. $2,750, additional funding for, pauper burials for unassigned fund balance. I move, we don't need to wait a second on
It's
this.
below the
Yeah,
dollar
it's below.
threshold.
May I ask a question about that?
Yes, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Where does this come from, the pauper burial?
We get we get certification, actually have to get certification of pauper, and it goes through legal before it gets there.
And where do we bury them?
I believe we cremate them.
Cremate them, and then where do the remains go?
To the family. I know that because a friend of mine had to go.
But we've had some unclaimed issues, but, usually they deal with it at the,
EMS.
yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, that's all I wanted to know, thank you.
Go ahead.
What's a pauper? I never even.
The person who is unable to, afford a burial.
Okay.
So the county, we have to do something with remains, so there are statutes that require this.
Okay.
And
But you have to, the individual has to apply for it, and they have to, basically show that they can.
Can't pay for their own.
We want to put them in.
All right, motion, is there a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're gonna come back, for the Patriot software. Mr. Tuttle, I know you and I have spoken about this a couple times. This is, regarding, I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Tuttle, I know you and I spoke about this a couple times, I think maybe last month, maybe before that, regarding the Patriot software for yes. So, the question that we had, and I'm gonna ask you to make a reply statement, if you can't do it, maybe take time to send us a meeting email. We received 2 quotes, back from the Patriot team. One for considerable amount, like 30,000, yeah, something around $40,000. Which was, there's another for $6,000, that was for, I think, it was PDF that had, like a metadata tag on it. Yes, but let it search for it. Which I think, personally, I think both of those are a bit high. But, recognizing that they, without going to court, which would be more expensive, they technically met the confines of their contract. How many hours do you think for you or your team's time, like man hours to parse that? Or if you were to try to outsource it to parse the data that we have? What's that cost?
If we try to outsource it, I think it's gonna be a little more expensive than the $6,000.
A little more.
PDF system.
Okay.
As far as doing it in-house, it's not undoable, we just need to know what fields we're looking for. Unfortunately, no one knows exactly what
So
we're looking for inside that data.
Yeah, so you would, you'd have to try to get from the tax assessor's office which one were relevant, you'd have to build a database, you'd have to stack that in there.
now he's saying he don't know the database fields what they are. You got data, you got those tables,
It-
you don't know what they mean.
Well, it's similar to what Mr. Shaw's saying, we need for
Somebody
people to let us know.
You can
what
look at
we're
all the
digging
tables
for.
and see, but you don't
Yes.
contextually know what those tables mean.
Correct, until we pull
Well,
them
you
in.
have, so it would be
Yeah.
all right, so like, in your estimate, if you were to try to get somebody outsourced, because that's a man-hour type thing, it's either, more than $6,000 worth of our man-hours that you can be doing something else, or it's $6,000, more than $6,000, that we have to contract it out. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any other questions for Mr. Tuttle, because I'm gonna have him. Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, given that, I'm gonna move to spend the $6,000, for the, meta tags PDFs. That's my motion.
Second.
And I'm gonna waive the second reading for that. Is the second good with that?
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we've done that one. Great. Moving forward, thank you, Ms. Pell. If you wanna stay and enjoy the rest of the session.
The last part.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, Brown House,
You skipped one.
You missed
oh,
item
sorry,
three.
Financial
Payroll.
Management, Committee request to correct payroll holdback issue. Go ahead.
Let me explain this one. This is the same one we've discussed. You have about 180 employees that, for instance, when they're paid next Friday, they're paid through Friday. So on Kronos, we cannot technically do, you need a holdback. And the question being, there's, you know, my initial one was talking to, I think, a couple of years ago, the Rutherford County and the state, they gave the employees a week to do the holdback, but the cost has been the concern. I went back and reevaluated. I think you could potentially do it by doing a prepay on the balance sheet, a little more complicated, but when employees leave, we would try to recapture it. We may have to pay part of it. So you can approve this, or this is financial management, or you can send it back for us to explore a cheaper option.
What's the total?
311.
311,000.
And as I'm saying,
And this is a one-time, right?
it's one time, but the thing is, we're not to the point that we're moving forward the way we're on EMS and sheriff right now, so after budget, if you want me to explore it with the prepayment, I'll be more than happy to. Right now.
What's the benefit?
Well, if you do the 311, what you're gonna do, if you do the 311, basically we're gonna dummy in a week and give everybody a week, and I'll give you that whole back. What we could do, dummy in the week, and we can put it on our balance sheet as a prepayment and track those employees as they leave and try to recapture it. So if they have a paid out payroll or vacation or something.
Yeah, no, I get it.
We,
You're trying to-
and you wouldn't have to do this, potentially. It's a little more work, we can look into that, but I need to.
How much are we gonna save for, again, I'm thinking like man hours here, because it's on your time, right? Same
Well,
question.
it'll be on the prepayment, we will just let the employee hired from a certain date, take it out.
And you just do that kind of on a rolling basis?
On a rolling as they leave. You're probably gonna have some of them you can't recover, and then.
But so I guess my question is, how much would you?
Can't tell, but you could save anywhere from 9% down to 20.
All right.
I mean, say all over the court, if we recapture, most of the time.
So, all right, well, if you think you can.
They've got payout,
then
they've got
I'm
payout
gonna make a motion
vacation.
for the second option that you recapture on our
I'll
current
second
basis.
that.
Motion and a second, any discussion on this one? Go ahead.
What does that do? Is it still the 311?
It would be, well, what I'm saying, instead of doing this, Mr. Becker, what we could do, right now, leave it alone, but the employees that are on Kronos, we go in and basically, if you guys approve and send it back to financial, we'd done the end of the week. We would put that week as prepaid payroll on the balance sheet. When an employee quits, that's, you know, in this group, because it's only about 180 of our employees out of about 1,200, that doesn't have the payroll, if they're in this particular department and hired before a certain day, we would go look on the prepayment. So when you quit, if you, as a full-time employee, had to pay out for vacation or pay, we would deduct what we could out of it. If you don't have vacation or something else and you quit, we can't capture it. So instead of this, we'll be bringing it to you on a rolling basis. We have to do a little more work, but it would be significantly less cost, but it'll be later.
But then going forward, you would actually get paid for the actual time.
Right.
We're gonna, that will be fixed, but
Yeah.
these folks, there's 180-some people, we owe them some amount.
So what I would recommend, if you're not gonna do this, is to do a resolution that when, so basically to this, a resolution, because we don't wanna get in the middle of it. If an employee hired after a certain day, automatically has to have a holdback. Finance will basically track these, and we'll make every attempt to recover these when people quit. If it's not recovered, finance will bring it forward to you, but we don't wanna be held responsible for the amount of.
So I will make a motion to do exactly that. My motion, I'll amend it to do exactly that, because that's more specific.
Or send it back to financial management to look at that.
Well, do we need to send it back to financial management?
Not
Can we
necessarily.
let's just do it here.
Okay.
I'm fine with doing it here. Like, let's go ahead and move that ball forward. There's no reason to ping pong anything back.
Right.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Now we're on the Brown House. 25, again, maybe I'm missing this. I thought we passed this all the way.
This is an additional amount.
Oh, an additional amount.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve. I'll second it, but I want to,
Yeah, okay.
before voting, I want to understand what happened.
Yeah, what happened is I went out there with Chris Coker, who's the specialist in historic homes. And as usually happens, so many things that we did not expect to see, we found out. And There was a ton of HVAC equipment under the house. It appears that the log cabin has been jacked up. The old floor was removed, maybe because it had rot. They built a new floor. But then we looked back under the newer area of the house and found out that it had hand-hewn log beams and an original floor that was actually 1-inch thick material, unlike the oldest part of the house. And so what happened is in an 8.5-hour day, we didn't get everything done. And he's actually going out there tomorrow to finish up what he can. One of the problems is it's so hard to get to it, especially when it rains, because there's no real driveway to it. But the long and the short of it was we did not hire Dairy Berry to remove the HVAC equipment, so that we saved $1,400 or something there. I'm obviously working for free, but he's spending more hours out there than originally anticipated. So we need a little more money to finish the job, because what a full understanding of the building will determine is what do we want to keep of the house and what do we
So I
want
want to get him on to you.
Okay.
I have questions for the law director and, for, you, Mr. Klein. So, for the law director, I guess first for you, now that he's spent 8 hours on the premises, does he expect anything like this 25, kind of similar question that I had for Mr. Sutton earlier, right? Like, is this gonna be it? Is he gonna be able to, or are we gonna get in there?
he does not expect to use the 2,500.
Okay.
We just threw that number out to cover it.
Mr. Sutton, my question to you is, are we running into, is there any caps here where we, and I know there are caps, but are we still under caps where we'd have to bid out such services? We're fine. We're fine. Okay, so my question back to you, Mr. Klein, is this. Are there any preliminary assessments? I mean, you said it had been kind of jacked up, from the foundation. I guess, are there any assessments to date that would make any further assessments move? Like, is the house, basically unserviceable, or is it serviceable? What are his preliminary assessments?
His preliminary assessments were the logs were in great shape. One of the things he's going to do tomorrow is knock out some of the brick veneer on the outside to assess the outside of the logs. We think they're in good shape. This will guarantee it. And then what he's going to do is crawl under the back of the house. It started raining on us. Okay. And so we couldn't get in underneath the kitchen area, which we thought was newer than maybe it is. And from the roof structure, it looks like everything from the dining room back to the end is a second phase of the house that came very early because it's hand-hewn logs.
Mr. Mansfield.
Executive summary, basically, what he was saying is there's $500 left of the original appropriation still of time, basically, in an estimated time. But to our charge in general operations is like we want to have options. Okay. A, B, C. Like, since they've discovered this house in different aspects, in different parts, like in some, it's all original, but then we've had stuff modifications. But there's how big or small do we want the slipper to be of what was original, what could be, or what could not. So we want options. We want them now. Okay. And so this is a part of doing that outside. He just needs a little. He's like, well, it's going to take a little bit more. So and he's going to do the work, but this is so that we can get what's being done now has to be done regardless. Okay. We're just doing the small steps so that we can get quotes to bring to the commission. And like we're meeting as an ad hoc next week, which he's going to have the options for us that we can then bring forward in June. Like here's what these are options we can move forward with, and that public can see and the commission can see that this is a part of that remediation. But it's again, it's money that's going to be used at some point for this building to do what's being done. We were just hoping he could do it for $2,500. So basically, it's up to. I don't think he's going to need it. Again, he has $500 left in the original 2,000. He's going out there tomorrow with a committee and just pointing up that outside, a little bit more poking to the brick where it's already been exposed. See the beam. So because in order for him to give us an estimate, we've got to see it, so it's an inspection. So
And he's also gonna crawl under the house.
got it.
In the back portion.
Because after he pulls out all that ductwork, they could, that's still part of that, but it's like, being so voluminous as far as that ductwork and going the original second floor.
see.
We couldn't get
I
to
get
it.
it. No, I understand. I've been under houses where you can't. Mr. Lambert?
I just know, is that weather depending? I think that's what I heard the association man say.
Yeah, because he doesn't
I just
want.
looked at the weather and it's supposed to rain all week. So
Yeah,
I just didn't
it-
know if he was gonna charge us just for driving out there and turning around and driving.
No, he won't do that. He'll only charge for work, he doesn't charge for the trip
Gotcha.
to it.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Did you have a question? I didn't see
I
it.
didn't, that's fine. It's no big.
Okay. Did anybody vote? I'm gonna take this vote again, just because it's.
Actually, so let me ask a question.
Go ahead.
So we originally approved $2,000, is that right?
Correct. Wow.
Man, sorry.
Question, dear.
So $2,000, so I know it's not.
2015, Jerry.
Okay. So I know it's not big, like, you know, the whole scheme of things, not a huge amount, but percentage-wise, we're now coming back and asking for 2,500. I don't understand why we were off the mark on the first request so much, percentage-wise.
We had expectations, and I asked him to not get rid of the HVAC equipment, because Commissioner Boyd said, well, maybe we'll need it, maybe we will, probably we won't, but we can leave it right there. So we went out there, and, you know, he kind of has a day rate, and so he used up all but $500 of it. And just because we weren't sure he could find out everything that he needed to find out, we added another $2,500. He does not expect to use it. I do not expect him to use it. He just needs to look at the bricks on the pull out the bricks, look at the logs from the outside in a couple of different spots, and then climb under the back area of the house that we thought was newer than it is. We think it's now, we're thinking it's pretty old. And so what he discovers then will determine what the ad hoc will decide on, well, what should we keep? Should we just keep the log cabin portion of the house, or should we keep the back because it was done within 20 years of the construction of the house? We just don't know until we know all of the facts of the history. He's been doing some studying on the framing techniques used in the back portion of the house. They're different than anything I'd ever seen. They look like maybe they were done in Germany or something. It was kind of, it's very, very interesting to see. But that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to identify the age of everything. And once he crawls underneath the house in the back portion, he will know that. And obviously pulling out the bricks, he'll be able to see the quality of the logs on the outside. And in the inside, they're gorgeous.
But if I understand right, the numbers, it's taking him more than double the amount of time he
Well,
originally thought.
understand that that was just a dollar amount we threw at it. He does not expect to need that $2,500 extra dollars.
Okay.
And the change, because I asked, a lot of that had to do with the HVAC and the positioning of the HVAC, which he didn't know.
Right.
He was not able to access certain parts as easily.
We couldn't get under
as he
the house.
expected to. I think that's the.
We had to tear out the HVAC supply and return just to get under the
Yeah,
house.
that was I mean, in terms of the physical thing that happened, I think that's what, you're just thinking time there, that's what took the extra time physically. Is that correct?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time tearing out that
All right.
ductwork.
Any other discussion on it? Mr. Becker, does that answer your question?
That's good enough.
All right, I'm gonna take this vote again. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, Millersville EMS, $50,000 to renovate 2 rooms. This is from, Jen Ox.
Motion to approve.
Second, any discussion on this?
Is this a county building or?
This is their building.
We're gonna have an MOU with them?
Yeah.
That's gonna be on commission.
Okay.
So they're,
What I explained earlier is our policies generally for capital $7,500 and capital something we can capitalize. But the rule that we follow from GASB, which is actually going to determine, says that this has to be basically, it doesn't necessarily have to be capitalized.
Right, but
So this would qualify.
but we do have an MOU, so here's what I'll do. I would like to amend the motion just to make it contingent on approval of that MOU. Or just.
Yeah,
you're good with that?
I will do that, yeah,
Okay.
because we can't do it without approval of the MOU.
So the motion is to approve this contingent on approval of the MOU between us and
Funding local capital projects.
funding from local capital. Mr. Beckett.
What's the, didn't we approve $50,000 for them to do something with?
No, that was for, to extend our current, the trailer that we had out there. Yeah, we had it, because we were.
When does that lease end?
Architectural.
This
Architectural.
Yeah, this is architectural, is 13.2.
Well, you already did some architectural on it.
Well,
But that wasn't the $50,000.
that was a different architect.
That was not that.
So you're using a different architect?
Yeah.
So we did, and we'll step through the things which I know that we spent money on, but I don't know the exact amount, so. But we spent money on an architect, because we needed to do that. So there was some, but it wasn't $50,000. And I want to say it was like $38,000, something like that.
No,
I can get you the number.
No, not for the architect.
Oh.
Or the trailer.
The trailer
was.
the low 30s.
It was $30-something thousand.
30.
That, I think, is what you're thinking of, Mr. Becker.
Okay, so then what are these 2 rooms for?
Go ahead, Mr. Warren.
Okay, there are two living, or sleeping quarters that do not pass, building code because they don't have a second ingress egress. So we've got an architect who did an assessment of the building, and, there's carbon monoxide analyzers, and there's 1-hour walls and 1-hour doors, but primarily there needs to be a window or a door cut out the back of each of those building rooms. And so this $50,000 is to pay for the architecture, which we already have a locked-in price of $13.2, and then the work to be done. It's not a lot of work, and this will allow us to get rid of the trailer and move our EMS guys back in, and to a point, and part of the amendment of the MOU was they have to give us 12 months notice, not 30 days, that we have to move out. And so there were a couple other minor changes to the MOU. Provided they accept that MOU, then we'll be able, with the allocation of this money, to go ahead and hire the architect, have him do the designs, bid it out, get a contractor to do the work and be done with it.
And your last sentence, or the last part you're saying, and be done with it. So will this put this behind us?
This will put this behind us. And what the city of Millersville came back and told us is that ultimately they think they're going to grow so much that they need to have 24-hour around-the-clock firemen there. And at that point, they will want those 2 sleeping quarters back. But until that time, we will be able to stay in there. It could be 2 years, it could be 5 years, it could be never. We don't know, and neither do they.
You want to give them 50 for 2 years?
Huh?
You really want to give them 50,000 for 2 years?
Well, we just spent $35,000 on a trailer for 1 year.
That's true.
10 months.
10 months, and if we bought that trailer, it would cost us about $35,000. So it seems like we would save money at this point.
Here's the thing.
Motion to approve.
Second, and here's what I'm gonna say. We gave, and I was happy, and Mr. Becker, I think you and I both voted for it. We've given funds to help Hendersonville with water projects. We've given funds, occasionally, we do stuff to help out different cities, and $50,000 for help out. I'm happy to do it, at least, sometimes we just do that as a county. Any other discussion on this one? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. All right, this next one, and I apologize. Did we need to?
Wait a second.
So,
$50,000.
Wait a second.
Let's
let's vote again. I'm good with the second. Second good with it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
And the contingency was still in there, right?
Right,
Okay.
yeah, the MOU.
So let's do this. Mr. Long and I were just having a bit of a sidebar, I apologize for it, regarding the architect fees for the old courtroom. Mr. Long, I'll hand it to you, but I think at the end of the day, we have a few options here. I'll just entertain a motion. I'm gonna move to approve this, but there's gonna be a lot of discussion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Okay, Mr. Long.
My first understanding is that you've allocated the spaces with the commission.
That is correct.
Okay, so has it been to Gen Off in any other way at this point, David?
We approved the architecture.
Okay, so here's what I think, and there's been discussions, 132s in this year from opioid, 500 for next year, so I think the next move would be before you appropriate it tonight, that I have, Dustin or Scott from my office to go ahead and get a quote from an architect of what it would actually cost. I think our next step, we can bring you back now.
Can't we just do it up to?
They're estimating 45,000, we're looking, we think the architect's potentially gonna be more. We don't know the exact cost, we can go, at this point, it may be the best thing for, have Scott reach out to the judge, clarify anything on this, and go ahead and reach out to the architect.
So maybe the right thing to do is appropriate an up to amount, kind of similar to what we did for the motion at the beginning of the day that I made, an up to amount for the architect.
How about up to?
60,000?
Well, we think it's probably.
You know, maybe I misspoke.
I hate to say, but I think it's gonna be more.
You're talking about Judge Blanton's area?
Yeah.
Okay. No, we haven't approved an architect for that.
So let's, because you do have your rules.
Here's what I'll do, because that way we can.
Get the quote right back.
Well, let's do this.
Yeah, there's nothing for them to approve.
What I would, because I don't think there's steps on anybody here.
The commission approved him getting the space.
Right.
And the balance.
But they also approved a finance policy for construction projects. Right now, the number one thing that would probably get us on the policy is I have Scott or Dustin reach out to the judge, find out what he's exactly wanting, get a quote on the architect, and bring this plan and the architect to Gen Ops this month to bring back the appropriation request next month. We'll know the exact dollars, they're pretty close. Right now, we're kind of, they're saying 45,000.
I don't wanna have, I get it, I don't wanna, but we could also do it up to, that way we can.
But if it ends up being short.
Well, that's true, then we actually shoot our.
But honestly, I think they're just shooting it red right now.
If we come up short.
Motion to defer.
All right.
So what I think, I'll send it to Gen Ops.
All right, yeah, get two things, one, we wanna do that, and we also wanna get wanna try to get an actual quote.
We'll send it up to finance, we'll help them prepare the plan per policy.
We have a motion and a second, go ahead, Mr. Jones.
The opioid money, by doing that, are we in jeopardy though, of running out of time?
So what I was talking to them, you have and I talked to Dustin yesterday, you have actually I talked to him today. You have 132,000 that you've currently appropriated to Recovery Corps Inc. grant, what it says. And then you have 500,000 for next year that makes this 632.
Right, we did that.
So if we're gonna pay it from there, how about if you approve that we go ahead and send it to Gen Ops with the appropriation this coming month? That's about the quickest you're gonna get it anyway. Basically what I'll do is I'll contact, in the morning, Dustin and Scott, my two project managers, have them to reach out to the judge, find out exactly what he wants, contact architects, and have a plan to Gen Ops this month, the way this will be back here next month.
All right, that's fine.
Wait the second, go forward.
That's basically the motion that's on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
They don't meet this coming month.
All right.
For this coming month.
All right, so, we take care of that one. Health Department, $1,000.
So moved.
Motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? EMS, $51,000.
Can you tell you what that is?
Go ahead.
The state has given them a training supplement. They do not pay the Social Security and Medicare on that, oddly enough. We're asking to approve the revenue flowing through and the payments for the supplement plus the Social Security and Medicare. And to waive the second.
How much is the total?
Motion. Second.
Are you good with waiting a second?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Klein.
How much is the total, David?
$51,200 for the grant and $39,818 local to cover the Social Security and Medicare.
3,918 from unassigned fund balance.
Yeah, so 55,000
Yes.
roughly, okay.
Roundabout.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously, you can waive the second reading. Okay, EMS and Rocky license, how much was this?
Motion to group and approve
Motion
one
to
and two.
approve, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Motion to adjourn,
So moved. Second.
all in favor?
We may want to give a thank you for our IT director. He stayed around this whole time, talking about the contract.